Thanks everyone for joining us on another webinar here. As you can see, we're covering quite a few topics here, from investing to developing to building. Today we're going to be going a little bit deeper into construction and value engineering here. We're going to touch on bidding a little bit and also the contract, but really taking a look at value engineering and how to do that basically during the whole process here in Costa Rica. Your speakers today, of course, myself from Costa Rica Investments, and also Eric from Belong Costa Rica. Eric and I work very closely together on many projects. He's, I would consider, my right hand on many things, and it's an absolute pleasure to have you here. And thanks very much for taking the time, Eric, to join us.
Hey, thank you, Richard. My pleasure. I really enjoy, every time that we're together, we're able to talk.
Awesome. Well, today, guys, I just want to quickly run over the agenda. We're going to talk about fixed price versus cost plus building here, because some value engineering can actually be done in the way that the contract or the costing is set up for a project. We're also just going to go over bidding here again briefly. Then we're going to get into value engineering, which is really kind of the meat of the actual of the presentation. And then we're going to go over the construction contract a little bit as well, just very briefly, to just go over that so we can kind of tie it all together. And then we'll end with a Q&A. If anyone has any questions, feel free to type them away. And we will actually answer them at the end of the presentation, just so we can get through this as quickly as possible for you guys. So without further ado, here's a home that we actually ended up building in Playa Grande that's now finished. If you guys have been watching any of these webinars before, you would have seen these timelines and basically steps here within this whole process, from design all the way through to delivery of the actual of the project. And these are the steps, and kind of, I would say that the average times it takes, sometimes it can take longer, sometimes it can be a bit shorter. It just depends on how long you spend in each of these areas here, guys, and also how the institutions in Costa Rica are as well, because that one's always fun, dealing with government institutions. We're dealing with them at the moment, Eric, and having lots of fun as always. But yeah, the good news is we have good communication backwards and forwards with them.
Yeah, today, that's the important part.
It very much is. And I think that that's important, that whoever, that you do does have a good communication with the municipal engineer or whoever it is that, that you're dealing with in that process. Today, we're going to be focusing more on this bidding and value engineering part, but really the value engineering part here at the bottom right-hand corner. So without further ado, guys, the first thing we want to get into is more fixed price versus cost plus. So what are they sometimes? When we bring these things up, they've not done construction before in Costa Rica, they're like, okay, what's the difference? Well, fixed price is exactly what it says. You have a house, it's going to cost this to build, meaning that it's, say, cost $1 million to build that house, and that's how much it costs. That's how much you end up paying. And I say caveat there, and we'll get to some of that in a minute. But it's literally a key in hand, as they call it here in Costa Rica. Llave in mano, key in hand, fixed price. Okay, so they say, for me to give you that key with the house being finished, it's going to cost you $1 million. Okay, then you have another option, which is cost plus. The way cost plus works is a little bit different, that you buy the materials and there is an administration fee that the construction company uses. Usually this is a little cheaper, and we'll get into that a little bit later, but it's literally a cost, which is you cover the costs, and then there's an administration plus. That plus can be anywhere from 10 to 20% of the total price of the build of all the materials, and really depends on the builder. And sometimes it's a percentage. Our suggestion is always to go for a fixed amount, and we'll get into that a little bit later as well. So let's get into now really the pros and cons of fixed price versus cost plus. Okay, fixed price, as I said there, price is fixed. It's $1 million for your home. It's a little less risk for the client, meaning that, like, when they know that they're paying $1 million for that house. They know that it's not going to go up, it's not going to go down. They pay $1 million. The risk is on the construction company, because then they have to go out and buy the materials and get it all done for less than £1 million in order to make money on the project, guys. And again, has its pros and cons, and there are ways to, and has its risks, and there are ways to, I would say, offset some of those risks. Some things that we've seen is when it's a fixed price construction, contractors may cut corners on certain using rebar, on certain using materials, the quality of the actual cement that they use. So you just need to keep a watchful eye on them. And if you don't know what it is that you're doing, again, I would have an inspector or project management team working with you on that. Of course, I am biased because, and I'm sure Eric is, because we do that work, but I think very, smart to have it just because we've seen some crazy stuff happen before. We typically find in these fixed price contracts, they're heavily padded. And what I mean by that is that, they're adding 30, 40% sometimes on top of this price that it's going to cost them of what they think it is. Why? Because basically post-COVID, the exchange rate was at like 670 in Costa Rica. So $1 was 670 colones. In literally, a couple of months, that switched and went down to like 540. Today, it sits at around 513. So, where there's a swing of 20%, they got burnt a lot because say that their profit was 20%, they lost that whole profit during the whole construction process on a fixed price because, again, they had to take your dollars then and buy colones, but they had less colones. So it cost them 20% more in order to finish the project. And that's why that a lot of the time, guys, they are heavily padding fixed price contracts at the moment. And also you need to make sure you have a really good contract in fixed price, guys, just with regards to materials that you're getting. Because if you don't define what it is that you're getting in your contract, like if they just say floor tile, but it's like, is it ceramic floor tile? Is it porcelain floor tile? What is potentially, how much, like, is it per square meter? What does it look like? Like a lot of that stuff probably needs to be defined, guys, during the actual construction doc process. Wood, is it teak? Is it laurel? Is it pine? Like all of this stuff, you need really, really good construction documents and great contract, guys. And we'll cover the contract a little bit later on during the webinar as well. As I mentioned here, guys, I think imperative to have inspections during a fixed price contract, because again, construction companies may cut corners to make more money. So I think you need inspections during that process. And I'm sure a few people listening to this have worked with us before and are like, yes, it was imperative we had inspections during this whole process, because it's crazy some of the stuff that we've seen, guys. Like, again, it's trust but verify everything in this country. And I always say that. I've even had clients say to me, Rich, I'm going to trust but verify everything you're telling me. I'm like, go ahead, guys, don't worry, because I have no issue saying I don't know on something, but not everyone, and especially culturally, it's not normally cultural in construction to say, I don't know. And especially with, I would say, with more qualified individuals, it's very difficult sometimes in this country, unless they don't have too much ego, for them to say, I don't know. Also, when it's a fixed price, you guys don't have much insight into where the money is going, meaning that like you're just giving amounts every single month. You don't know where that money's going to, or like what materials it's buying, etc. So, it's very, we had a project recently where we started to see that the project was lagging a little bit and it was a fixed price contract. We ended up having to get involved in it and realized once we did everything of that the construction worker basically did not have the money to finish the project. So we then had to take it over during that process and pay all the third parties in it, and then basically manage his money as well for him. It became very clear he was not very good at managing money. So ultimately, we as project managers had to take that on. Like, and I'll say, I'm not trying to scare anyone, guys. It's just that you want to cover all of your risks during, projects here in Costa Rica. It's an amazing country to do projects in. You just need to make sure that you have a great team on your project. So that's kind of just some pros and cons there from the fixed price contract, guys. I'm sure there are very many more that other people can name. So I'm just going to take a drink of coffee here. When talking about cost plus, how this works is you buy all the materials and there is usually an admin fee the construction company charges. It's usually anywhere from 10 to 20%, as I said there. So if they say it's an $800,000 build, it could be anywhere from 80,000 to 160,000 for their administration costs. So usually our suggestion is don't have it as a percentage, because again, if the project goes beyond time, you continue to pay that percentage to that company to pay it. Make it a fixed amount based on their estimation. Meaning if they're saying the project costs $800,000, our admin fee is 100,000, fix that $100,000, guys. So don't just say it's, it's 12% of the cost of materials. Because if that project keeps going on, one of the biggest expenses is going to be labor. And they're going to charge you 12% on top of labor every single month. Another way we've also done it as well, guys, is to actually give them a bonus if they finish early, meaning if they save us money on payroll, we give them a percentage of that money back by the saving. So it's kind of like a win-win, lose-lose, if that makes sense in that scenario. There was a little bit more risk here for you guys because, again, you have to manage, I would say, those material cost changes, etc., and also exchange rate on this one as well, meaning that you are having to cover the costs basically every month. Excuse me. But I think if you have a good team on this, I think that you can reduce that risk quite a lot. We do a lot of cost plus contracts, guys. We do fixed priced as well. Currently, I would say most fixed price contractors are padded so much that it's not worth doing them a lot of the time. And it's better to go with a cost plus and make sure that you have inspector or project manager because you will save money in the long term. Again, this is usually 10 to 20% cheaper, meaning that if it was $1 million build, you'll probably find it could be 800,000 or 900,000 in like a cost plus scenario, guys, here. So that there is a saving to be had there. You know, you might be thinking of like, what's the motivation to finish quickly on a cost plus if there is an admin fee on this? Well, again, as I said there, if they finish quickly, their admin fee is fixed. They get paid it where if it takes 8 months, if it takes 12 months, the admin fee is the same. You can give them bonuses for finishing early as well, guys. But typically also that there are penalties for finishing late as well. Even in this contract, you can use it in the fixed price, you can use it in the cost plus. But typically you'll find them in cost plus contracts. But if they don't finish on time, there is usually a daily fixed fee basically for every day that they're late after the contract. And I think if you're going to do a cost plus, guys, get a project manager. You know, maybe not on fixed price, you need it as much, and maybe inspections, but definitely on a cost plus, you need a project manager just to make sure that the timeline, everything is being done right. And also that somebody is there looking out for your interests when it comes to the materials and those fees and the project being on time. And yeah, it's being delivered on time. You know, and really it's just have great control of the dollars there. As I said there, you know, with a project manager, they can control those dollars. But in this cost plus, you do have a lot more control of where the money goes. And the fixed price, you don't know where your money basically is going for this. And a lot can go wrong because you don't have that visibility into that fixed price, guys. So that's really kind of the difference between fixed price and cost plus there, pros and cons. I'm sure there are other ones out there as well. I think ultimately, guys, it comes back to what you're comfortable with, okay? Meaning that if you just want to know that there's a price and then that's it, and you're happy with that, and you're happy paying, you know, a little bit above what I would say is the normal rate, then go for a fixed price contract. If you wanted to take and save yourself potentially a little bit of money and want to put a team together, then you can go with a cost plus method here. But it really depends on your comfort with risk and also your budget as well, because you may have $1 million budget, and when you come back with a fixed price contract, it's 1.2, and in order to get that down to your budget of $1 million, you need to do a cost plus. And I think also it just depends on the team on the job, meaning if the team on the job is your architect and your architect is overseeing all the construction for you, you know, it's probably best to go with a cost with a fixed price on that one, just because you know what you're getting. But really, as we've seen, is fixed prices a lot of the time are not fixed prices, especially with some of the fluctuations you've seen, and they end up being cost plus, meaning you start off with one number and it ends up being the other. I mean, we have an example of a client we were called on that with a fixed price where it was $650,000. And just looking at the building, we were like, there's no way you can build this for $650,000. Like, it was a fixed price for that. And we were like, there's just no way you're going to ever be able to build that for $650,000. So it ended up being $850,000, but their fixed price ended up being a cost plus in the end. Sorry, guys. Here's another house that we also built, but I put it in there just for purposes. I think we ended up building this one, Eric, for like $600,000, no?
Yep, 620. Yep.
For 620, it's a 4-bedroom house in Playa Grande. That was probably I would say, one of the most value engineered projects we've worked on. So yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to hand over to Eric now for bidding.
Thank you, Richard. So as you know, I think we mentioned in the past webinar that we had, well, our recommendation is always, you know, to have between 3 to 5 construction companies bidding your project. It is very important, you know, as much numbers as you can get that will give you enough information to get to the right number of cost, you know. So basically, what you have to do is like once you have all your construction documents, 100% construction documents reviewed by your consultants, you just send that documentation out with the bidding document. That it's a document, you know, that basically has like everything that it's needed to be presented, you know, with the budgets and how the detail of the offer has to be received or sent for that. Once, you know, you get your offers back, basically you do like a line by line, or what we do is a line by line analysis, you know, of all the different activities that we have request the construction companies, and that give us the opportunity basically to be able to analyze line by line those activities and identify, you know, the biggest variations and where we need to focus. Also, it just gave us the, you know, where we have be able to find a lot of or not a lot, but we have been able to find like mistakes in the budgets, you know, where people just like, or where the construction companies, they just make mistakes during their bidding, and that have saved money most of the time to the clients, because normally those mistakes are always going up. But sometimes, you know, a big you know, or a lower cost can just gets adjusted to the right or to the proper construction cost due to those mistakes. Basically, during also, you know, once we do all that analysis, so we are able to identify where we need to focus on the value engineering, you know, where to get those numbers down. Mainly, you know, mainly it's on structure, you know, on most of the finishes, windows, you know, flooring, doors, all a lot of that. This is basically an example, you know, of a house that well, you know, of a bidding process that we did. And you can see here, you know, that there's a big variation, you know, like $350,000 around that variation between one company to another. So those yellow marks that you see there are like the biggest variations, you know, or the activities that we focus on in order to be able to compare, you know, like apple with apples at the end of our analysis, or at the end of the analysis. So that's mainly the what the job that has to be done there. Okay, so coming into the value engineering, you know, detailing or process there, basically it's always good, you know, to do that value engineering during the designing process, and since the beginning of the design, you know, as soon as we get like drawings, you know, or the preliminary drawings from the architects mainly, you know, we start that value engineering process, because what we have found out is that most of the electromechanical engineers and structural engineers, you know, they don't have the context of the lot or where the house is going to be built. You know, they just have the information that the architects send them, but they do not do a visit, so that don't give them the context. And we have found, you know, over design construction drawings, so that can give us some a good feedback on the engineer, and you know, that can also lower the cost. Another good thing, you know, is to find out or to use, you know, standardized windows, standardized doors. Every time you do custom, anything that is custom is going to be like overpriced, and it's going to have an extra cost there. So if you have like a limited budget, just make sure that during the design, everything that it's design there, it's basically standard, you know, so that it gives you like a better control of your cost on the construction there. What else? Well, as Richard mentioned before, you know, the difference between fixed price and cost plus can be, you know, between 10 to 20%. Sometimes could even be a bit more, you know. And it's always good to understand the they see the budget that you have, and be very clear with your designing team, because most of the time architects, they are artists, and they don't understand about budget. So it's very important to be very clear with them.
No, no offense to any architects, because I'm sure that we've got
No, not at all. No, and that's why I said they are artists. They just create amazing things,
Yep.
and that's why we just need to like
Bring them down
help them optimize. Yeah, bring them down. Yeah, but they are wonderful. Nothing could be done without architects. That's for sure. So another way, that a value engineer can be applied, basically, it's there are new construction systems here that one of them Arma Bloque and Super Bloque, those are like modular construction systems. So basically, it's a modular concrete block, that they have like different size, and this system is basically optimized or designed to the size of the house. So it is very easy to be installed. So it gives a good saving in labor. That labor is one of the most expensive items here in Costa Rica. So if as quick as you can do the work, the less money is gonna cost you. Okay. Another way, to do value engineer or to save money, of course, is to do bulk buy, and that's basically you should try to match as much materials as possible from one supplier, and that will allow you to be able to negotiate with them like bigger discounts, even if you like buy everything during the process of the construction. You can do like a negotiation, a big negotiation from the beginning. Just pay them part of that amount in advance, and they will hold you that cost throughout the construction process. So that will help you save money. And the other way, to save money or to do value engineering is basically import material. We have found clients, that they have been able to import furniture, hardware, for all the doors, appliances, lighting, switches, a lot of different things that can be imported, and that will also be a big save in the construction. It's just a matter of finding a very good shipping agency, or shipping supplier that can help you with that. It's not difficult, and it can be done. And here's an example of a construction, or a house that we did a value engineering, basically, and we just switched from let's see, basically we came down like from $452,000 to $422,000,
If I'm correct, Eric, this was the second value engineering that we did as well on this one, because I think originally it came out at like 5 something. Yeah, like 570 or something, right?
Yeah, it was 570. Then we came down like to 530, and this was like the last value engineer that we did, and yeah, we were able to lower it down to the 422. Basically, what we did, we look for offers, and for a similar material flooring, there are different type of porcelains, and just look for a porcelain that was like good enough for the project, but it had an offer when we went and looked for it, and also they had a lower cost too. Also the pool tile, there are a lot of different pool tiles that can be, like you can select. Also, there's like there were like some square meters that were not as, how to say, that they could be optimized, and we discussed that with the architects, and we were able to reduce that square meterage too. So those were like some savings that we were able to do in this house, basically.
Awesome. Well, just going on to finally here, guys, the contracting. I mean, you can use the you can use the construction company's contract, but just make sure a lawyer takes a look at the contract as well. It should include the payment schedule, guys, and the appendices of when to make payment. Do not pay more than like 15% out on the first payment to get started, guys. I mean, I've seen before 30, 40, 50%, but you're just asking for trouble of giving that amount of money to someone and then they disappear sometimes. So you just need to be really, really careful on that payment schedule. I'd also make sure there's a holdback as well. Typically, we do about a 5% holdback on every single payment that we make. So every month that we make a payment, we're holding back 5%. Why? Because when at the end of the project, they now have, once we've made those payments, an incentive to finish the project and all the details. There's going to be a punch list at the end and they need to get that done. And we typically don't pay, we pay the 2.5, like half of the 5% at the end of the punch list and the other part basically 30 or 60 days after. Construction companies don't like it, but it incentivizes them basically to finish the project in order to get that money, guys. Also making sure that there are penalties inside the contract for being late on it as well. I mean, it can be anywhere from $200 to $500 a day or $1,000 a day, depending on the size of the project over a 30-day period. Usually there is a maximum that you put on it, guys. But they can also be the other way as well, which is if they finish early, you can give them a bonus as well based on a saving. You typically wouldn't give them a saving if they finish early on a fixed price contract because it's already in their fixed price. But if it's a cost plus and they finish early, you can find a way basically to give them a bit of a bonus there. Also need to make sure in the contract you talk about currency variations. It's a big one, guys, that's been in contracts recently, of just making sure that if there's a swing, we usually say like 5% positive or negative, you come back to the table and you discuss it. Because if it works in your favor, like you win, but if it goes the other way, you know, then you basically lose. But we always say, come back to the table and discuss it. So make sure that, again, we always say, if there's a 5% variation in the contract, positive or negative, we will sit down and discuss how to manage that within the contract, guys. And usually it's a 5% negative, if that makes sense. But if it's a 5% positive, it should also be in your benefit as well there. Another thing, force majeure, guys. I think if the pandemic ever taught us anything, it's force majeure, force majeure, force majeure. I had a contract that I wish I would have used those words in. Unfortunately, I didn't. I was able to push force majeure through in the end, or used force majeure to force majeure through. But important because, again, Costa Rica, climate, you know, things can happen here, of just making sure that there is a force majeure clause in the contract to cover everything. So that kind of really covers contracting. So based on all of that, our top recommendations are bid your construction project to 3 to 5 construction companies. I had someone the other day that was like, no, I found my construction company. They haven't even done the design yet, but they found their construction company. You just saw in those 3 things there, guys, the swing from 900,000 to 1.2 million. If you go with one construction company, you don't know where they are in that swing. They could be 1.2, they could be 900,000. And that's a small swing that we've seen, guys. I mean, we've seen stuff go from 1.2 up to 2.4 million on a project. So if you only go with one construction company, you really don't have any perception of what's good and what's bad on that. Yes, they may be great guys. They've done great work before, but you need to have, like, you've never just purchased, like if you're going to go and buy a car, buy the first one that you go to, you take a look at a couple and then decide which one you want. It should be the same with construction companies. Choose the method that you're comfortable with in construction, whether that's cost plus or whether that's key in hand or fixed price. Just choose which one that you guys feel most comfortable with. There's no right or wrong answer there, guys, but it's just which one, again, you're comfortable with. Value engineer your project. It doesn't matter whether it's fixed price or cost plus. Value engineer your project, guys, because, again, there is a lot of money that's left on the table on a lot of these things. I would say, Eric, typically, I mean, we're able to save clients anywhere from like 5 to 20% in their construction bills, you know, when we go through the value engineering. So,
correct.
And also make sure that you have a great contract as well. Again, you should have your lawyer take a look at everything. Don't just go ahead and sign the construction company's contract. You need somebody on your side to take a look at the contract and go, think about all of these things. You know, lawyers see a lot of ways of where contracts go wrong. So just make sure that you have a good contract. You know, when things do go wrong in Costa Rica, you're not typically going to court. You're going to arbitration, and that's usually a clause in the project, in the actual contract. So just bear that in mind, that you're typically going to go to arbitration. It's a much quicker process. If for some reason you need to go to court, it can take, you know, 5, 10 years and cost you probably a lot more than what you guys are talking about. So as I said there, use your lawyer's template. If you want to, lawyers typically have a template, use theirs. If they don't, you can use your construction ones and have your lawyer basically edit those out. I would highly suggest, whether it's fixed price, cost plus, have an inspection done by third parties or have project managers, guys. I don't say that because I'm in it. but it's like, again, it's like an audit of the work being done. Trust but verify everything. It's a beautiful country, but shit happens here, unfortunately. So just make sure that you have like an owner's rep and then someone doing inspections or a project manager, somebody on your side to kind of be like, hey guys, something's not right here, or this is falling way behind, etc. You know, and I think a lot of people are penny wise, pound foolish on this of like, well, I don't want to spend it. And it's like, they will save you that money throughout the whole process. You know, I think as we get older, we understand that sometimes investing into stuff and to people can sometimes save you a lot of money, basically in the long term. So that's kind of the summary today with value engineering. We hope that's kind of helped people here. Here's another house we've done. I just want to know, does anyone have any questions out there, guys? We've got a QA coming through here. Let's see if I can pull it up. I don't know why, but I don't seem to be able to pull it up. Let me stop sharing and go over to us, and maybe I can do it this way. So the QA, Roberto Jimenez says, hey, Rich, when you suggest to appoint an inspector, is the architect whom you have in mind or a specialized resource? Well, typically in our experience, guys, the architects aren't fully inside construction. Like, they design and they can inspect stuff and measure, but like they don't have that experience of how to bend rebar and how to vibrate concrete correctly and like how stuff, typically they don't. I'm not saying all of them, but typically, you know, architect's job is to design a beautiful house and make sure it gets built with those measurements. When it comes to appointing an inspector, usually I would suggest, guys, an engineer or people that have been in construction a very long time. Typically, an engineer is usually best, guys, that has a lot of construction experience that can really give you, you know, that feedback that's necessary, that you're going to need from a technical perspective as well, but also that they can speak the same language as the construction person can as well. Josh Ford says here, I assume that people often look for items designs that are per North American standard. What are some examples that are or aren't worth doing that for? I mean, what are some of the stuff, Eric, that you can think of? Well, I mean, some of the stuff is huge internal areas. We spend a lot of time outside here, you know, and the people want to be outside. So building huge internal areas probably is not the smartest thing to do either. Bidets, probably not necessary. I mean, it's more a European thing, but sometimes people like to put them in. Bathtubs, we don't really use that much here. It's more showers. You know, I think people like to look at bathtubs, but it's not really necessary. Heating, we don't need here. We need cooling here. So yeah. I'm trying to think what else is there, Eric, that basically, you know, kind of more stuff for North American standards. I think it's insulation.
Well, we have had, yeah, insulation mainly. We have had some discussions about jacuzzis, you know, heating up jacuzzis out in the coast. You know, some clients, they're like, oh, yes, I want heating. Some like, no, I just want a jacuzzi, you know, but not to be heated, basically. But those are like mainly the things there, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything that really jumps out. I mean, probably lighting, external lighting, having not tons of external lighting just because of the wildlife that we get here. Especially in some areas like Playa Grande, having down lighting, guys, no up lighting. I would suggest that kind of orientated stuff of maybe potentially using solar here as well. We get a lot of sun that we can use here, solar water heaters, solar for electricity. Irrigation and water is one thing that we need to kind of impact here. Maybe not so much in North America, but depending on where you are in Costa Rica, the climate is so different. So you have to build based on that climate. I think you have that a little in North America, but it's very extreme here in Costa Rica. Like in the southern zones, we get a lot of rain in certain periods of time. So it gets hot and it gets humid. Whereas in Costa Rica, in the northern part, in Guanacaste, you know, it's a little drier, but it does get humid as well. So it's just that tropicalness that we kind of have to deal with as well. Mosquito nets as well, which I mean, in some North American areas we have to deal with. You know, maybe some materials like flooring not being carpet. Like this is not a country, like you're trying to cool your house down, carpet keeps it kind of warm, whereas like a ceramic or polished concrete could work, basically, yeah. So I hope that helps you there, Joshua. Roberto asks, how to find the construction companies, how to find the value engineers. Well, Roberto, the value engineers are typically project managers or actual engineers that you hire to be on your side of the transaction. They're not like, they're usually third parties that you're hiring. How to find construction companies? typically I would ask your architect for 2 or 3 companies, and I would go out there on forums. You can ask us. I mean, we have a list of construction companies, and be like, guys, who would you recommend? If you go onto Facebook to any group out there and type in, hey guys, recommendation for construction companies, you know, there's a whole list coming there. And then you just need to take a look and interview them, and really start asking questions about how they make sure that they're on time, how they make sure that they're on budget, their experience. Speak to references as well. And I think the big question to ask the references is like, what could they have done better? If you were to build a house again, would you build with them again? You know, where did it go over budget? Where did it go over time? You know, where was there like a lack of communication? You know, just you're trying to peel the onion there to just try and really figure out, because not everyone wants to go, dude, they were absolutely terrible. But that you might get there by pulling back the kind of the layers of the onion a little bit. But value engineering is going to be someone that works for you, dude. The architect's not doing it so much. The construction companies aren't doing it, if that makes sense. And sometimes the construction company and the architects can be in cahoots as well, guys. Like they're both the same, if that makes sense. So you just need to trust but verify on everything. Again, as I said, it's an amazing country, guys. You can build beautiful stuff here. You just need to really just be careful. Trust but verify everything on that one. Joshua said, thanks, great info. Do you have anything to say about solar panels for electricity? Is the ROI there in Costa Rica, or is this something you recommend against? I think it's a personal solution, Eric. I mean, the majority of electricity here in Costa Rica, you know, 98% comes from renewable sources anyway. So I think if it's a sustainability thing, you know, it could be said that by using the network here, you're using sustainable electricity because it comes from that. But again, we do get quite a few electricity cuts here as well. And having batteries, you know, on electricity or on solar can help with that as well. But what would you say the ROI here is on this one, Eric?
Sorry, Richard, the ROI?
Yeah, like the return on investment. It's usually like 7 to 9 years.
Sorry.
Right?
Okay. Yeah, well, it will depend mainly on the system that you select, but a system with batteries backup, normally, yeah, it's between 7 to 9 years. You know? Yeah,
and I mean,
that's and that's why lately we have done 4 projects with a solar system, a solar panel system, and that has been the ROA in all of them, 7.5, 8 years. So between 7 and 9 should be a good number.
Cost, because I know that's going to be the next question. If like, what's the rough cost that we've seen in the swing, Eric, of like the solar system? I know it depends on the house, etc., but what's the rough range of costs?
It's between $35,000 to $40,000, Richard, for a solar system with batteries of between like 8 to 10 kilowatts being backed out, basically. Yeah.
And I mean, people people can have solar panels just for the day if they want to, for their lights and stuff. I had a neighbor in the UK when I was back in the UK who did something very interesting. He runs his whole house on batteries, but he has no solar. He'll basically charge the batteries at night where the electricity is the cheapest and use the batteries during the day. And he's like, I halved my electricity bill. And I was like, that's really smart. Like, I would never even think about that. And I think it applies here in Costa Rica as well. There are different tariffs during certain times of the day, you know?
Yes, not all of the different suppliers, Richard, but most of them, or the biggest one, you know, they do have variations during the day. Yeah.
It would be worth even looking at doing that and seeing if that works, you know, because again, I think it's probably your biggest expense here in Costa Rica is going to be electricity. I mean, on very large homes, and we talk 6 to 8 bedrooms, I mean, it could be $2,000 to $3,000 a month in electricity. Typical 3-4 bedroom condos, if they're being used all the time, you know, it's probably like 600 to 800 a month, maybe even 1,000 if it's being used at the most. But it's AC probably that's going to consume the majority of that electricity. That and dryers. So you could also do a gas dryer as well. You'd save yourself some money on a gas dryer. Okay, I think that's it for questions, unless anybody else has any other questions out there, guys, for us. I'll just give it like 30 seconds here, Eric, while we, sometimes last time I was like about to sign off and then someone came in with a question, but we like nothing more than questions. And I think for anyone that's listening to this after it's been done, if you want to, all of our contact details are in the description down below. You can reach out to us. I always say we're a sucker for helping people. You know, even if you don't use us, we'll point you in the right direction. You know, we're a believer. One of my favorite sayings is when the tide rides, all boats rise. So, you know, we just want to make sure that the tide is rising on all aspects that we touch here in Costa Rica. But looks like there are no more questions, Eric. So again, thank you very much for your time, sir. And again, we'll put all the contact details in the description down below. And we'll see you on the next webinar.
Yeah, my very pleasure, Richard. You know, I always enjoy these webinars. It's very, you know, I like this. Yeah, like to
Awesome.
spend time. Yeah,
That's good, guys.
nice seeing you.
See you. See you later. Bye.
Hey, I see you, Richard. Bye.